Alright, the new mounts are here, and I went with the Cortico because they appear to be the OEM version, by all accounts probably the best available, and this is not something I want to ever do again. What kills these motor mounts, they're filled with oil, so they're essentially hydraulic in nature. That gives you a smoother, more decoupled experience with the engine. It's more decoupled from the body, so it's quieter, smoother, and much better than it is now. And along those lines, what will kill it is the heat, because this thing lives about just an inch or two under the exhaust manifold. There is a heat shield over it, but it's just a piece of metal, thin metal, so you know a lot of heat is soaking into that metal and getting through. So I've got a couple things I'm going to do to try to expand the lifetime of this, and one is this heat reflective material. My plan is to cut a circle to form more or less a skirt around the motor mounts as they live in the car, that are going to slip in. It's going to be between the heat shield on top and the guts of the motor mount, so it will reflect the heat, it will insulate it somewhat, and very likely make a big difference. The material I got is about 10 by 20 inches, which looks to be about the right size. My plan is to cut this in half and then cut it into a rough circle with a hole in the center that corresponds to the mounting bolt here, which is what's going to hold it in place. It's really not going to take anything more than that. It will be free to spin, although it won't because of the way it'll be in there. And it should protect the new motor mounts from the intense heat. Just fold it in half, create a crease. Now I have a cut line. Okay, and scissors are working just fine. So that's good news. Next is to cut a circle out of this, and I think the easiest way to do that, since cutting a circle is hard, but cutting an arc is easy. I'm going to fold it in quarters, and then for this one I might need a little more than the scissors, but that'll work. Just cut a circle. As easy as that. It doesn't have to be perfect. And the center, to cut the hole in the center, all I got to do is trim that part off, and I should have a pre-built, ready to go heat shield. Just for grins, I'm going to cut a little slot here to correspond to the locating tab, just so that there's absolutely no way this thing's going to get out of place. I don't think that's even likely, but basically this will deform itself any way it needs to under there. I'm just going to leave it in whenever I put the cap over the top, the heat shield. It will just push this out of the way. I don't really care where this sits. You can see it's going to be shielding heat. It'll be up against the frame, other things, but it should keep this mount alive for much longer. So now I just have to do the same thing for the other one. So there you have it, the Mercedes-Benz GLK motor mount life extension kit. Okay, trying to come up with a good test for this heat shield. I'm just going to pop it in the toaster oven, run it up to a full 500 degrees. I figure that's probably as bad or worse than it's ever going to see in the engine compartment. Keeping in mind that this does live under a metal heat shield, so just see how it reacts to that, and if it passes the test, it goes in the car. Okay, just to give you an idea, I'm shooting the surface of it right now. I'm getting 471 degrees, so set at 500, and just a minute into the process it's already that hot, so I'm gonna let it keep cooking for a while. Okay, it's been on for several minutes now. I'm gonna see what the radiant heat from the broiler element has brought the surface of the heat shield up to, and it's 716 degrees. Just coincidentally, on the bottom of the toaster oven, it's about 400 degrees. If I shoot over under the heat shield, 237. So that's a fairly huge difference. So this stuff is doing what it's supposed to do. It is obviously reflecting the radiant heat away from whatever's under it. It's surviving in battlefield conditions, 500 degrees right now, so I'm happy. Okay, a final check. Going to check the temperature on top of the heat shield, just to see what it's withstanding, and I've got 753 degrees. Here you can see the exhaust manifold, which is the rounded part on top. Immediately under it, and I'm talking immediately under it, is the heat shield. You can see the 10mm bolt on the heat shield. And then below that, the 13mm bolt on the little extension to the right there is the front bolt for the motor mount. There is another bolt that is directly under the exhaust manifold that makes it interesting to get to. The way that the motor mount is sitting in there right now, so all I'm going to do is place this as such over the motor mount, and whenever I put the bolt through, it should this little I'm glad I cut this little hole as an alignment slot. It should jump right in there. I don't think that's really going to be a problem. So I'm going to place this over the motor mount once I get it tightened down just a little bit flatter, just to aid in alignment of getting this top bolt in. That would be the case with or without the heat shield, by the way. Okay, I've got the heat shield placed. The slot is on the tab. The hole is lined up with the hole. The thing I got to do now is I've actually got to drop the engine an inch or so, just so the bolt reaches from the slot down to the motor mount, and I can start turning it in. And once I got it started turning in, nothing's going to go anywhere. It's in there now, and I'm just tightening it up from the top. I finger tightened it as much as I could from underneath. Now it's just a matter of making sure everything's lined up. Okay, you can see the heat shield. It's up against the mount in the back, which is absolutely fine, of course. The cover will go over it, in between the exhaust, the manifold, and the heat shield itself, which is just more shielding. So, okay, there's the finished product. You can see that the entire area of the motor mount above the metal mount is covered. It's shielded. I'm filming this from where the catalytic converter is going to be, so that's all going to deflect a whole bunch of heat, which can only help and keep this motor mount in here, so I never, ever, ever have to do this again. Please, please. Okay, here's the final product from the top. You can see it's just shielded from everything above it by the fabric under the metal shield, so I can only hope that that will help.